Hello, my name's Dee Dee and I'm a 60-year-old woman. My husband died about 5 years ago, but I'm still a working woman. I have 5 kids, 4 of which live in different states all across the country. They each have their own families, and I'm beyond blessed to have such a big family. One of my kids, Jack, still lives in our hometown. He attended the community college here, which is where he met his wife, Riley. I liked her, but I didn't think my opinion mattered either way as long as Jack was happy. The two of them got married pretty soon and then pursued further education together in their respective fields. When they got good jobs and earned enough, they decided to have a child. I was excited because that meant I had one more grandchild to spoil. But Riley was weird about me meeting my grandchild, Jason. She was very particular about when I could visit and how long. It was understandable in the first year of Jason being born, but even when he was 6, that was odd. But I let it go because every family functioned differently. Before I knew it, though, 12 years had passed. Because of the limited amount of interaction I was allowed to have with Jason, I didn't really get to develop a strong bond with him. All I did know was that we both shared a genuine love for books. So whenever I did go over, I made sure to buy him some books I knew he'd like. One day I was at work when I got a call from Jason. Now, that was odd for various reasons, the most prominent reason being that Jason and I barely spoke outside of family gatherings. I tried my best to connect with him the way that I had done with my other grandchildren, but he seemed way too distant. "Grandma, are you free to talk?" "Yes, honey. Any time for you. Tell me, is everything okay?" No. Why are you crying? Did you get hurt? Is there anybody at home who can help you?" "Mom and Dad are here, but do you need me to call them for you?" "No, I called you because I needed your help." "My help? What could I help you with, darling?" "I need you to save me." "Jason, what are you talking about?" "Don't laugh, Grandma." "I'm sorry, honey. That was not what I was expecting you to say." "I'm not kidding. If you aren't going to help me, I'll find a different way." "No, hold on. I'm sorry for laughing. Now, why don't you explain what you meant?" "I need you to save me from my devil mother." "Devil mother? Honey, what do you mean? She's not as sweet and nice as she acts. She's really mean to me when no one's around, and she keeps... Oh no, I hear someone coming up the stairs. I have to go. Please don't tell them that I've called. Bye." I was confused and concerned. As far as I knew, Riley was one of the sweetest people I knew. How could Jason call her a devil? I didn't believe him at the time because I figured that it was just him trying to get back at Riley. After all, she probably grounded him for something he had done. As far as I knew from what both Riley and Jack had told me, Jason had been a pretty mischievous child. But I had this nagging feeling in my gut that Jason was not joking around. As I went home that day, I couldn't stop thinking about the call. It was very out of character for Jason to do that. I slept on it for a couple of days, but I still couldn't rid myself of the feeling that something was up. So I decided to make an impulse purchase and ordered a hidden camera. Of course, I felt wrong spying on my son and his family, but I justified it by telling myself that I was only doing that because Jason called me to explicitly ask for my help. If, and hopefully, there was nothing, I could just retrieve the camera. But if there was something, then I'd have to figure out what exactly needed to be done. I hoped that even if there was something happening, a long talk would solve that issue. The camera took a couple of days to arrive, and after it did, I set it up. Thankfully, this was one of those cameras that I got live footage from as well as recorded footage. I could access the footage through an app on my phone, which made it very convenient for me. Once I had set it up and figured out the technicalities of the gauge, I decided to call my son and ask him if I could come over. Hello, sweetie. How's everything? Everything's great, Mom. What about you? It's the same old, same old. Although I was wondering about something and I thought I'd ask you about it. Yeah, of course. Is everything okay? Yes, yes. I was just thinking that we haven't met in a long time and I was wondering if I could just swing by your place one day. Yes, of course, Mom. How about this Sunday? Yes, that works. But shouldn't you maybe check with Riley if that's okay? Lord knows I hated it when your dad made plans without asking me about it. I know Riley would be really happy to have you over. Don't worry, Mom. All right, then I'll be there around 5 o'clock. That works. See you soon. Take care. Even though I was going to Jack's place with ulterior motives, I was actually still excited to go spend time with my son. Considering I never really saw the rest of my family until the holiday season, it felt nice to have one of my children staying in the same town. I tried my best to not intrude because they were living their own lives. The weekend came by pretty quickly. I got ready pretty early on and figured that I should take something over to their place. I went to the grocery store and picked up a nice bottle of wine, and I bought a couple of books for Jason because I knew he loved to read. When I got to my son's house, I was greeted warmly by all three of them. Jason looked at me with so much relief that I got concerned again. He hadn't tried to contact me after that first phone call, so I had no way of knowing what he was going to say when he hung up. I spent the next couple of hours just talking to Jack and Riley. We had dinner and drank wine. At some point, Jason went to his room because we were talking about adult things that I bet weren't of interest to him, so I excused myself to go talk to Jason. Riley did try to subtly stop me, but I insisted because I had visited them after a long while, and I didn't think it was right to not spend time with my grandson. Jack stopped Riley from saying whatever he wanted to and told me to go talk to Jason. Once I got to his room, I shut the door behind me. I walked over to him and handed him the books I had gotten him. We talked for a while about the books, a conversation that he had started. He seemed really excited about them, so I let him ramble on about them. I didn't try to bring up what he had mentioned because I wanted him to do it. We moved on to talking about other things like what was going on in our lives. At some point, while he was talking to me about his school and other things, he grabbed one of his notebooks and began to write something in it. He showed it to me and it said, "Mom's listening. Can't talk about anything." I couldn't tell if he was being serious or just paranoid, but I went along with it. We continued our conversation while I wrote my plan in the notebook. I told him that I had brought along a hidden camera with me and asked if I could plant it in his room. He seemed ecstatic and agreed instantly. I shuffled around the room and found a good spot to keep the camera that gave me a good view of the room. I started the recording and checked my phone to make sure that the camera worked. I sat with Jason a little longer until I told him that it was getting late and that I should get going. I did leave my scarf behind so I would have an excuse to come back whenever I needed to. I remember hearing footsteps hurriedly shuffling away from the door after I said that, and it made me wonder if Jason truly was right. I didn't pay much mind to it at that time, and I hugged Jason goodbye. I went back downstairs and said my goodbyes to both Jack and Riley, and then made my way back home. I was pretty exhausted from the night, but I did check the camera when I got back home. I stayed up for an hour to read and kept an eye on the footage just in case something happened. All that had happened was my son walked into Jason's room and asked him what we had talked about. Jason told him about it, and that was that. I fell asleep eventually, and when I woke up the next morning, I didn't check the cameras. I rushed to work, and I only checked the camera when I knew Jason would have been back from school. Once again, nothing much happened, and I was beginning to think that Jason really was lying. I decided to give it just another day, and if I didn't find anything, I would go over when neither Jack or Riley were home, and I'd ask Jason to give me the camera back. But that night, as I kept an eye on the footage while I read, I found out what Jason was trying to tell me. I watched Riley enter the room with a stick in her hand, with Jack trailing behind her. I immediately unmuted the video. I heard Riley ask Jason what he did that entire day. She made him narrate it to her in extreme detail. Whenever he stuttered, she would sharply ask him if he was lying, and if she felt like he was, she had him put his palms out and would deliver 2 to 3 swift raps against his knuckles. I watched in growing horror as the number of times she kept hitting him got more and more frequent. Jason was sobbing and Jack just stood there and watched. I was disappointed and disgusted with what I was watching. I had raised all my kids in a very gentle manner. I barely even yelled at them because I believe that kids are smarter than we think. While we may not be able to reason with them, they are capable of understanding when you explain things to them. I didn't understand why Jack was just standing there and letting his son get hit for something so unnecessary. I wanted to rush over to their place and stop them. But what would I have said to them? They would have found it odd that I happened to be back just a day after I was already there. I remembered that I had left my scarf there, but I knew that I could have used that excuse in that moment because I needed that as an excuse to meet with Jason. But I could do one thing. I picked up my phone and called Jack. "Hey, Mom, is everything okay?" "Yes, no worries. I hope I'm not disturbing you." No, Riley and I were just saying goodnight to Jason." "Ah, all right then. I just wanted to tell you that I think I left my scarf in Jason's room last night. I remember setting it down there, and then like a klutz, I forgot it there. Do you think I could swing by tomorrow and pick it up?" "Why don't I just come over and drop it off for you right now?" "No, I'm way too tired and I'm going to fall asleep before you even get here. I had a long day at work and I'm barely even holding up the phone right now." "All right then, why don't you swing by in the evening?" "I can't do that. I'm meeting up with a couple of my friends for game night tomorrow." "Well, Riley and I won't be back till evening. Why don't you swing by the day after?" "I need that scarf for tomorrow. We're having a themed get-together of sorts." "Well, you could swing by in the afternoon. Jason will be home." "Oh, lovely. I'll be there around 2. Good night, Mom." My heart raced as I came up with lies on the spot. At least my call distracted Jack and Riley enough for them to discuss whatever I had said to Jack instead of focusing on hitting Jason. But before they left Jason's room, Riley declared that Jason would not be getting any dinner or any other meals until dinner the next day. I was appalled. I wished I didn't believe that Riley and Jack would follow through, but from what I saw, I knew that wouldn't be the case. The next day, I took off from work and mentally prepared myself for the conversation that I was going to have with Jason. I was sure that he would not want to continue living there, but I still needed to hear him say that. Before I went over to Jack's place, I made sure to pick up some food for the both of us. When I got there, Jason looked like he was about to faint at any minute. He looked weak, and he was very lethargic. Riley really did make him not eat anything. I quickly gave him his food and watched as he devoured it. I felt so sorry for him, and I knew that I wanted to make things better for him. When he was done eating, I spoke to him. "Did you see everything that happened?" "Yes, darling, and I'm so sorry for laughing at you earlier. I had no idea." "No, it's okay. I know Mom seems like the nicest person, but has she always been this way?" "The beating only started recently, but the starving has been going on for a while. And I just need to get a clearer understanding. So could you tell me why Jack isn't doing anything?" "He's too scared of Mom. He just follows her everywhere and listens to everything she says. Everything she wants, she gets." Oh, honey, I'm so sorry that you've been dealing with this for a while. But I am curious. Why didn't you eat anything at school? Mom didn't send me to school. On days that she doesn't let me eat, I stay home. Mom measures how much of each food is there in the house, and if it's even 1 gram off, when she gets back, I get punished more. So she's starving you and jeopardizing your education? I'm definitely going to do my best to help you out, okay? I need you to tell me right now if you would like to come live with me. I'll take care of everything you need and I'll keep you away from Mom and Dad. Of course, Grandma. Anywhere away from here will be great. I promise to only be good. Just please, take me away from here. I promise I will, darling. But it will take some time. Do you think you can handle staying here for a little while longer? Yeah, I can. I've been living here for 12 years, so I can wait a little more. I carefully took away all the wrappers and made sure to leave no trace of any food there. I didn't want Riley to make things worse for Jason. I then helped Jason clean up any crumbs and then checked and double-checked to make sure we left the place exactly as it had been. I went back home and made sure to call Jack to let him know that I had gotten my scarf back and thanked him for being cooperative. Next, I contacted a good friend of mine who worked with family law. I explained my situation to him and he told me that it would be hard and long to fight for custody of Jason. He also informed me that while I may be able to get custody, the judge may only give me a temporary one, and in that time, Riley could easily change up her behavior and get back her custody of Jason. I knew that getting her to court and trying to fight for custody was definitely not going to work in my favor, especially with what little evidence I had. But I did know one thing. I could use the evidence I did have to get her to make me Jason's legal guardian. You see, Riley worked as a counselor at one of the many middle schools in our district. I was sure that she wouldn't want her abusing her child to reach anywhere and take away her current job and future job prospects. I kept careful watch over the footage the next few days as I gathered all my evidence and sorted the paperwork for a transfer of guardianship. I waited until it was the weekend to go over to Jack's without any notice. When Jack opened the door, he seemed surprised to see me there. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you and Riley." I don't think now's a good time." "Why? What's going on?" "Just family stuff. Hold on. How come you're suddenly over so frequently?" "Can't I visit my son? I didn't think I needed to have any special permission to do that." "No, I didn't mean it like that. It's just that you've taken a sudden interest in us this week, and it's weird because you rarely ever dropped by before." "It isn't really weird. I only came over today because I have something seriously important that I need to talk about with the two of you." "I don't think—" "What's that sound?" I knew that Riley was doing something to Jason because of how evasive Jack was being. But when I heard what sounded like loud crying coming from Jason's room, I pushed Jack aside and walked into the house. There was no way I was not going to protect him when I was standing right there. I ran, well, more like speed walking, considering I'm not very young, to Jason's room and burst the door open, only to see Jason sobbing as he clutched his face. Riley was breathing hard as she looked at him with so much malice that I shivered. I ran over to Jason and asked him if he was all right. He just hugged me tight and wailed into my ears. Riley humphed and walked away. When Jason calmed down, I took a good look at him and noticed that his cheek was red and swelling up. His knuckles were bleeding, and there were welts on his arms, all from the stick. I felt a kind of rage in me that I had never felt before. What kind of a monster do you have to be to hit a child so hard? Nothing the child did deserved that level of treatment in any case. I went downstairs to the kitchen and grabbed a bag of frozen veggies and went back upstairs to give it to Jason so he could use it to help reduce the swelling in his cheeks. Once I had made sure that he was okay, I told him that I would be taking him to my place that day and asked him to pack as many of his things as he could. With that, I walked back down to talk to both of them. Riley looked mad and Jack looked like he wanted to be anywhere but there. "How dare you just barge into our home that way?" "Isn't it a good thing that I did? You are hitting your child for crying out loud. What I do in my family is none of your business. Your child is my grandson, and he is a part of my family too. You're hurting him, and I can't let that go on." "He may be your grandson, but you don't live with him. You don't know what a brat he is. I'm just disciplining him." "Who cares if he's a brat? He's a child, and there are so many other ways to go about disciplining a child other than hitting them. I mean, you, of all people, should know this. Listen, I don't believe in any of that gentle parenting crap. Leave me and my family alone. You got it?" "I'm afraid I can't do that." "What do you mean?" I handed Riley the papers that she needed to sign to transfer guardianship rights to me. Both she and Jack stared at the paper for a long minute before looking at me in utter confusion. I explained to both of them that they both had to sign the papers or I would be releasing the proof I had of them hitting Jason. "What do you mean by proof?" "I set up a hidden camera in Jason's room last week and I have all the proof I need. Neither of your jobs will appreciate what you guys do, especially yours, Riley. If you want to have any income at all, I suggest that you sign the papers." "You were spying on us? That's a gross violation of our privacy." "Don't get me wrong, but I was only acting on information that I had. I needed to make sure Jason was doing all right." "Mom, don't do this to us. Give us another chance. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again." "I don't want to hear any of it. I'm very disappointed in you, Jack. I raised you to be better than this. You're just as disgusting as Riley, as if not more. I'm taking Jason with me and I expect the papers to be signed after. If you don't, you know what will happen." I knew that neither of them wanted to play with that kind of risk, so they didn't put up a fight when Jason and I walked out. I took Jason to go get dinner and ice cream and I tried my best to comfort him. I provided him with a safe space to share his feelings and to just exist without the fear of one tiny action causing havoc. In the weeks that followed, I was granted legal guardianship of Jason. Riley and Jack cited that they planned to move to a different state and didn't want to disrupt Jason's education as a reason for transferring for guardianship. The two of them did end up moving, which proved to be a big sigh of relief for me. Jason is doing much better now and he seems a lot happier. Knowing that he won't ever run into his parents for a long while has brought about a better side to him. He's one of the kindest and sweetest kids I know. He thanks me every day for what I did for him and I intend to keep my promise to always protect him for the rest of my life. Thank you for listening. Hello, I'm Anne, a 28-year-old woman. I'll just jump straight into these events because a lot happened and I don't want to take up too much of your time. I met my husband Saul at college. We were in our first years and we shared the same electives. We started talking about a month after we started sharing the same elective and we found out that we shared a lot of things in common. We had the same ideals and believed in the same values. We also shared a similar sense of humor and a lot of favorite media. The point is, we fell in love pretty fast. We dated for around 5 years before deciding that we wanted to get married. While both of us were very satisfied with each other, Saul's mother, Janet, was not. She hated me instantly. Keep in mind the first time I met her, we met at a restaurant. I made sure that I dressed and behaved appropriately. She still took it upon herself to belittle me and make fun of me the entire time. Saul's father, William, kept trying to shut Janet up, but she remained silent for a few minutes before getting back to talking badly about me. I remember asking Saul if I did something wrong to his mother after the first time I met her. "Saul, did I do or say something that your mom didn't like?" "Absolutely not. I was just going to apologize for her crappy behavior. I really am sorry she said all that. You didn't deserve that." "Why do you think she was being so mean?" "I know this isn't an excuse in any way, but this could just be a plausible reason. I'm the only boy in my family, and she's always had a soft spot for me. I guess maybe that's why." "Even if that's the case, shouldn't your happiness be the one thing she wants? I mean, I make you happy, right?" "Of course, my love. I wish I could explain to you why my mother behaved that way, but I can't. Although I can tell you that no matter what she says or does, it will never change the way I feel about you." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. You're the best thing that has ever happened to me. I'd be crazy to ever let you go." I felt reassured after that. We continued to be happy with each other. Of course, Janet kept trying to say things against me, but Saul would always stand up for me. Janet didn't like that, and that only made her hate me more. I learned to just ignore her over the years. Janet's hatred for me only got worse after Saul and I got married, but instead of having to deal with her constantly, we decided to go low contact with her. For the next few years, we only saw Janet at family gatherings and on birthdays. That, of course, never stopped her from belittling me whenever we saw each other. But I ignored her always. Aside from that, life was going really great. As the saying goes, all good things come to an end. Things started to go downhill when I got a promotion at work. The promotion involved putting in extra work for a whopping 50% increase in pay. I didn't mind the extra hours, but I knew that it would be wrong of me to make a big decision like that by myself. I discussed it with Saul, and both of us agreed that it would be a smart move to make. We didn't have kids to worry about, and it would have benefited our household. And so I began working longer and harder hours. Whenever I came back home, I would be way too tired to function. At first, Saul was very caring and loving. He would have a bath prepared for me and a hot meal waiting. Obviously, with the shift in my schedule, there came a shift in how we divided our house chores. Earlier, I would get back home before Saul, so I would make the meal. But now the duty shifted to him. Of course, with the tiredness came the need for rest. I spent a lot of my weekends just laying and resting in bed. The rest of the weekend was spent cleaning up the house, doing laundry, and going grocery shopping. Every other weekend, Saul and I would go on a date. I tried my best to create a good balance between my professional and personal life. Everything was going pretty well until I was given a huge project to manage. This project alone would boost our company to another level, and I was given the responsibility of handling it and making sure that it produced the best results. The project required me to spend quite a few late nights at work. Saul's behavior didn't change at first, as in he was still the same caring and loving husband, but as the weeks wore on, I began to notice a change in his behavior. Another thing I began to notice was the increased visits that Janet had begun to make at our place. She would be there every time I came back home, but she would leave immediately after. After she would leave, Saul's mood would be pretty sour and low. For a week, I tried talking to him for an entire week, but he never budged. I figured he needed some time and just let him be. I poured myself into work and didn't even make it back home some nights for the next week and a half. That only seemed to make Saul's behavior worse, so I had an inkling about what was happening. The next weekend, I decided to set my foot down and confront Saul about what was going on. "Saul, what's going on?" "It's nothing." "It's not nothing. You're behaving very differently." "No, I'm not. Yes, you are, and you know it too. Lying won't get you out of this conversation. Tell me what's wrong. How would you know what's wrong when all you've been doing is staying out late? Is that what this is all about? Yes, obviously. You're never home anymore, and whenever you are, all you can think about is work or you're sleeping. Well, yes, you know how exhausting work is for me. I don't have it in me to do anything else right now. Plus, right now and for the next few weeks, I'll be busy for a long time on this one particular project. Yeah, a project that requires you to not come back home and do God knows what with God knows who. Are you trying to say something? If you are, say it clearly. Don't play with me. All I'm saying is that you've been spending way too many nights at work. So you're basically accusing me of cheating? I didn't say that. Oh, no, but you are saying exactly that. You know what? Why don't you just track all my movements from now on? I'll share my location with you at all times, and I'll make sure to send you pictures from wherever I am. Actually, I'll do you one better. I'll pin a GPS tag on me so you know where I am at all times. You don't need to lash out. How can I not? My own husband is accusing me of cheating on him. You see just how exhausted I am after work every day, and you still think I'm cheating on you? You know what? I can't deal with you right now. I was furious. I couldn't believe that Saul could think such horrendous things about me. If I truly was cheating on him, why would I choose to do it on days that I'm working when I could easily utilize my free weekends? Surely that's more time than the hour or two that I have for breaks. I left Saul at home and rushed over to my best friend Kelsey's house. She was surprised to see me because it had been a while since we saw each other, but welcomed me nonetheless. I told her about everything that was happening, and we decided that the best course of action in the moment would be for me to calm down. I didn't want to do anything that could hurt Saul or my relationship with him in my anger. I needed to approach my situation with caution and care. Deep down, I knew that what he felt was valid to a certain extent. I had been spending a lot less time with him ever since I got handed my new project. I felt guilty about it, and I knew that I had to make amends for it. At the same time, to immediately jump to the conclusion that I was cheating was atrocious. It took me about 10 minutes to gather myself. I cried a little because of how hurt I was, but when I had calmed down, Kelsey and I began to talk about it properly. So, what led to all this happening? I mean, I get why it happened. I've been out too late and we haven't been spending much time together. That's fair, but don't you think that accusing you of cheating is taking things a bit too far? He could have gently talked to you about it instead of jumping the gun. That's true. I just don't know what to do about all this. I've done nothing to even imply that I've been cheating, other than me working late, of course, but even then. He knows just how disgusted I feel about cheating, so for him to think of me doing something like that is upsetting as hell. I bet. Do you think something must have happened for him to think that? What do you mean? I don't know, like maybe he was watching things that made him overthink your activities and behavior, or someone was telling him something and that's why he thought that you were cheating? You know, now that you mention it, I have been seeing Janet at our place a lot more often now. Oh, doesn't she hate you? More than anything. I bet she's been feeding him this nonsense. Absolutely. Although, I do have to say that you and Saul need to talk, because if it took this little for Saul to view you negatively, there's something wrong happening. I agree. I need to find out what Janet is trying to do, though. There was no doubt in my mind at that point that Janet was involved in that situation. The way that she would glare at me when she walked out of the house and the drop in Saul's mood only confirmed my suspicions. I knew that Saul wouldn't openly believe her, or even if he did, he wouldn't act on it without proof. So I knew that she would try to do something to get evidence. I just needed to keep myself alert for whatever it was. When I got back home, Saul refused to talk to me. I was sure that he thought I had just gone to my lover's place, but I was too emotionally drained at that point to care. I fell asleep, and when I woke up, I heard Saul on a call with his mother. The phone was on speaker, and I could hear everything she was saying. I told you that she was good for nothing, but you never listened to me. I love her, okay? Clearly, she didn't love you back enough. She had one big fight with you, and she just went straight into another man's arms. We don't know that. Ugh, you can't even say it with any confidence. She looked so hurt and upset when I told her I thought she was cheating on me. I mean, she did make a good point about being too tired from work to even cheat. Cheaters always find a way to cheat. Don't get fooled by her reasoning. I still have no proof of anything, so I can't even decide on what I want to believe. You don't need to worry about that. I've taken care of it already. Taken care of it? What do you mean? I hired a private investigator to go after her. He'll go everywhere she goes, and he'll get us our evidence. Isn't that a little too much? Nothing is too much when it comes to exposing Anne. Just you wait and see. She'll be begging for forgiveness once we have that proof. So that was what she had intended to do. It felt jarring to hear her talking to Saul that way, and him barely defending me. I guess I messed up by not devoting much time to the two of us, considering how Saul would always defend me from her before. I knew then and there that I needed to do something to get back the man I loved. I needed to get some dirt on Janet. The next week, I kept an eye out for whoever was following me. It wasn't that hard. Everywhere I went, there was this one red car parked just a little away from me. The first few times I spotted it, I thought it was a coincidence I was seeing the same type of red car. And then I memorized the number plate of the car and realized that it was the same one. I didn't want Janet to know that I was in on her plan, but I needed the tables turned. One night, while I was staying back at work, I decided to go downstairs to where the car was parked. It was pretty late, and the man inside was asleep. Janet really knew how to pick a good PI. I didn't care that he was not a good PI. In fact, I had a feeling that it would only work in my favor. I approached his car and knocked on his window. The man was startled awake, and his eyes widened when he saw me. I mentioned for him to roll down his windows. I asked him what his name was, and he reluctantly told me that it was Todd. Hey, Todd, I've noticed that you've been following me around for quite a while now. Oh, it's nothing like that. Then why have you been parked here every night that I'm in the office and only leave when I leave? Sometimes I even see you parked a little away from my house. It's all just coincidence. Save it. I know you're Anne's PI. Please don't tell her that you found out. I owe her a favor, and that's the only reason I took this on. She'd make me do more work for her if I failed at this, and I really want to be done with her. All right then. I want you to double-cross her. Double-cross? Yeah, I want you to collect dirt on her instead. Did she tell you what she planned to do with the evidence she got from you? Oh yeah. She went on a whole rant about it. She told me that your anniversary was coming up in a month and she was going to throw you guys a party and reveal it there in front of everyone. Wow, she was that sure about me cheating, huh? Anyway, I want you to find out whatever you can about her and give that evidence to her so she can expose it at the party. Keep up the pretense that you're looking into me. What do I do if she asks for updates? Tell her you're busy and that you're working on it, but you've found some things. All right. Thank you so much for not telling her a thing. I know how horrible she is. I understand your pain. It was actually pretty funny to see the very PI that Janet had hired was so against her. I didn't actually think that Todd would find anything, but knowing that he wasn't actively spying on me the way that Janet wanted was a satisfying feeling. Although I couldn't believe just how much faith Janet had in me cheating. She wanted to humiliate me, and I couldn't help but feel like Saul also wanted that. Of course, I had no way of knowing at that point whether Saul knew about her plans, but the thought of him knowing and agreeing to publicly humiliate me hurt me like crazy. So I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. I figured since Janet had already hired a PI without Saul's knowledge, she wouldn't have told him about the surprise anniversary party. Saul and I's relationship didn't get any better or any worse in that month. We didn't speak much to each other, but there were still moments when we let each other know that we cared for them. He would still always have a hot meal ready for me, and I would make sure to buy him all his favorite treats, and once a week I would bring home his favorite dessert from his favorite restaurant. Even though no words were spoken, there was an understanding that we just needed time to sort through our emotions. Saul and I did talk from time to time, but never broached the topic of me cheating. And I was okay with that. I knew that I just had to wait for our anniversary to come, and then things would get sorted out on their own. Finally, the time came for our anniversary. Janet called us very early in the morning to come over to her place for brunch. Saul seemed confused when she asked us to come over, and that only made my suspicion about him not knowing her plans even more solid. We got ready and headed over. Once we got there, we noticed a lot more cars. Turns out she invited my parents, my siblings and their families, and Saul's siblings and his family. Saul seemed very surprised, yet happy to see everyone. We put aside our issues to maintain a facade in front of the rest of our family. Even though I knew that Janet had gathered everyone there to humiliate me, it felt really nice to spend time with them. We had brunch, and the table was full of chatter and laughter. After lunch was over, Janet announced that she had something to show everyone. We huddled into the living room where she plugged the USB in. She prefaced her little surprise by telling us that for the longest time she had always hated me. She wanted nothing more than the best for Saul, and she went out of her way to find information about me cheating on him. You could hear a pin drop in the room at that point. The entire mood shifted at that point. Everyone was uncomfortable. I felt Saul tense up beside me, but I remained calm. She called on me and told me since I was the one that was cheating, I needed to be the one that showed everyone the evidence. I confidently walked up to the TV while Janet walked over to where I was seated next to Saul. She smirked at me as I opened the file called Evidence, and as soon as the first picture loaded, I felt the same shock that everyone in the room experienced. The first picture was of Janet and some other man kissing at a bar. I continued to go through the rest of the pictures, and they only showed various other places that Janet had gone to with the same man, including her house. Janet had grown pale while everyone else looked at her in disgust. I felt the worst for William. He looked angry and sad at the same time. When we finally got to the end of all the pictures, the room was silent for a minute before William finally spoke up. "What is this, Janet?" First of all, you sought to expose Anne for cheating on Saul? Why would you put her through something like that? I only wanted the best for Saul. Or you just wanted to humiliate Anne because you don't like her. Saul is just your sorry cover. Not to mention you tried to expose her for cheating when you're the one doing it. Do you not see how much of a hypocrite you're being? That was not supposed to happen. I don't know how, but I just know that Anne has done something here. I didn't do anything. You tried to ruin my relationship, so I had no time to involve myself in your shenanigans when I was busy with work and fixing my relationship. Don't lie. What did you do? Stop trying to pass off your problem to Anne. Stop doing what you did with Saul. Your truth is out. So own up to it. She knew I hated her. She did this to humiliate me. I don't see an issue with it, when that was exactly what you were trying to do as well. So, you believe me, right? You know that she has been cheating on you, right? I don't think so anymore. I feel pathetic that I even listened to you. You almost destroyed the best thing I've ever had because of your selfishness. I never want to see or hear from you again. You will have exactly 1 month to move out of this house. I'll have the divorce papers handed to you before that. I couldn't believe how well things worked out in my favor. A few days later, with a little bit of research, I managed to find Todd. I told him about the outcome, and he told me that he had already found out. Janet had called him to yell at him, but he simply told her that he had done his favor for her and hung up and blocked her. Todd also told me that he had never taken his work more seriously than when he found out that Janet was the one who was cheating. I will admit that it made me laugh a little too loud. William and Janet got divorced shortly after. William has been a bit of a mess, but that is expected considering that his 20-year marriage was broken. But Sol and I made sure that we were there with him at every moment that we had. On nights that I was busy, Sol would stay over with his dad just to slowly ease him into being alone. Janet moved out, but not without trying to choke me. Thankfully, William and Sol held her back and I wasn't harmed. As for Sol and I, we're doing great. Sol has apologized profusely for ever suspecting me. Of course, it took some time to fully forgive him and forget what had happened, but we agreed to go for couples counseling. We've slowly been sorting through all our issues for the past month, and I feel like our relationship has never been stronger. If there's one thing that I think I've learned through all this, it's to always make sure that you tell the people you love how much you love and appreciate them. Thank you for listening. Hello, I'm Mia. I'm 29 years old and I just got divorced from my husband, Fred, a couple of months ago. I had met Fred in college. We shared a couple of classes and we would always end up sitting next to each other. We began talking to each other and before we knew it, we were falling for each other. While we had a great relationship, there was one problem, and that was Fred's mother, Holly. For some reason, she hated me and she constantly tried to break Fred and me up. I would talk to Fred about the discomfort she made me feel, but he would never really do anything about it. He hated having to go against his mother, especially because he had only her when growing up. I eventually just let it go and dealt with her crappy behavior towards me. She would love to criticize everything I did, and sometimes she would criticize things about me that she didn't even know. I figured then that Fred would tell her these things, and that only made me more upset. We fought a lot over that, and Fred finally relented and stopped telling her things about me. We dated for about 3 years before getting married. Holly realized that her words were no longer affecting me, so she began trying to influence Fred to divorce me. That never worked, and we went in low contact with her for a little while. During that time, both of us got promotions at work. However, I was earning a little more than Fred, so we split our expenses 60-40, with me paying the highest portion. We were happy as a couple, but as an individual, I began to feel like I wasn't doing enough. I needed to pick up a hobby. I had always been rather good with design, be it interior or otherwise, but if I needed to do something on the side, I figured I needed it to be something I could work on from the comfort of my home. Graphic design was the first thing that I thought of. I decided to try my hand at it, and it turned out I was pretty good. I took a couple of courses and bought some equipment without Fred knowing because I wanted to keep my project a secret. I didn't like spilling the beans on my projects because I often had many of them, but not all of them always worked out. The only person I told about my new venture in graphic design was my best friend, Jess. So I've taken up an interest in something. Oh, is this another one of your many hobbies that you'll lose interest in pretty fast? Hopefully not. I hope to get paid really well through it. You're going to get paid through it? Finally, don't hold back, spill. Well, you know how I have an eye for design and art. Don't tell me you're planning on painting. No, that's way too tiring, but I've begun graphic designing. That's a wonderful idea. That's actually a very profitable field. Yeah, I took a couple of courses and I want to start working. You know what? I might be able to start a business. Whoa, I don't know about starting it by myself. I was thinking more of working with a firm. No, that's boring and not very different from what you're doing. You'll lose interest pretty fast, but I have a couple of friends who also are starting businesses of their own. I could introduce you to them, and you could help them design their logos and websites. That would be amazing. The people that Jess introduced me to happened to be these rich people who had no problem throwing away money on a risk, as in I had no other qualifications and I was very much a beginner. But they liked my work a lot and they introduced me to many other businesses and individuals. Slowly but surely, I began to earn a good amount of money through my side gig. It was a great relief because now Fred and I could live a lot easier. I began saving up little by little so I could buy Fred something nice. I hadn't told him, and whenever I wanted to, it felt like he never wanted to talk. I quickly realized that something was up with him, but he never seemed to want to talk about it. The first month I noticed something was off was when Fred told me he had spent all of his money on some investments a week after he got paid. We did get into a little bit of an argument, but we got through that month. I pulled in a couple of extra hours at work and everything was all right. The next month, Fred said the same thing again, and I was beyond upset. How could he have spent so much so quickly? I ended up saying a bunch of mean things, which at that time I had been very apologetic about, but I hoped that maybe that would teach him to be a little more responsible. When it happened again the next month, I was tired. At this point, I had learned to be more cautious, so I worked a little more anyway. Aside from my actual job, my graphic designing side job was also going great, and in fact, that was what was paying the bills more than anything. But when Fred didn't have money again for the third month, I was done with him. How would you let this happen again? Do you literally learn nothing? Look, I'm just trying to get as much return as I can, and I'm messing up a little. It's not a little when you're investing and losing your entire pay. You have your money, right? We'll just do what we've been doing for so long. No, I'm tired of this. I will not support you this month. You figure out your own expenses. What? You can't do that. Well, you can't gamble away all your pay either, but here we are. So what? I'm just supposed to starve and take public transport? There will be food at home because I'll ensure that all our shared expenses are covered. You have to take public transport because you can't pay for your own gas. So you want me to actually look poor? Taking public transport is in no way a reflection of your status. Stop being entitled. If you wanted to drive your own car, you should have thought twice about gambling away all your money. You're a selfish and ruthless person. How could you do this to your husband? What about what you're doing to me? I've been working extra hours just to cover up your losses. Can't you at least try to see my perspective? No, you have no perspective for me to try and look through. Ugh, I'm leaving. I don't want to deal with you right now. Fred left to go to God knows where after that. I couldn't wrap my head around why he was behaving that way. That was a first. I had this nagging feeling that Holly was involved in what was happening, so I decided to do a little snooping while Fred was away. It didn't take too long to figure out that Fred had been lying to me. I had access to his bank account because he had logged into it on my laptop and had saved the password. He had more than enough money in his account. In fact, when I went through his transactions, I saw that other than the usual amounts of money being debited, there was nothing else. I was very confused at that point. Why had he been withholding his money from me? Why had he been lying? I decided to go through his messages because nothing was making any sense to me. The first person I saw that he had texted was his mom. It was regarding the fight we had before he left. He told her that I had lashed out at him because he refused to give me any money, and Holly told him, "I told you." I knew she was behind his change in behavior. She had always been out to get me, but I didn't think that she realized just what kind of fire she was playing with. I scrolled through the rest of their chats and I found out some things. The first was that Holly had been incessantly texting Fred about me. She had kept pointing out my negative traits, like me being money hungry and only staying with him for his money. That was hilarious because I was the one who had been contributing the most to our household. The second was that she had been getting to Fred. He began to text her about minor things I did that annoyed him. She only enabled and amplified his complaints. That explained why Fred was beginning to withdraw from me. And lastly, they had made a plan to cut me off financially. Fred had been hesitant and against it at first, but over time, as Holly enabled his complaining, he began to give in. He finally decided to do it 2 months ago. He had told Holly that I had picked up extra hours the first month and the month later. He told her about our huge fight where I said some mean things. That was only more fuel to the fire. I was obviously beyond hurt at what I had found out. I didn't know what to do about what I found out, so I decided to go over to my best friend Jess's place. Jess has always been the first person I go to whenever I face any problem, regardless of what time it is. Since I showed up at her place at around 11:30 p.m. unannounced, that obviously raised some alarms for her. She let me in and got me settled in with a glass of wine and asked me what happened. So, what's going on? I just found out some disturbing things and I don't know what to do now. All right, who is this about? Holly and Fred. Uh-oh. What did they do? So, you know how Fred has been gambling away his money on some bogus investments for the last 2 months? Yeah. Which was weird as hell. Did he do it again this month? Yeah, except not really. Huh? What do you mean? Turns out he had his money all this time, but has been refusing to give me any money. Hold on, why? That seems so pointless. You've been running the bigger portions of the household expenses, right? Exactly. That's why what he's been doing has been so confusing. Wait, is his mother involved in this? Of course she is. She's been texting him for a while about all my flaws for a while now, and even managed to convince him to stop supporting me. And she doesn't know about how much you're making? Nope. What about Fred? He should have at least been smart enough to figure out just how you've been contributing so much. Does he really think that your day job is paying all the bills? Apparently. I don't know how to go about dealing with this. It's obvious, isn't it? You cut off all his support, and when he's desolate, you divorce and leave him. Isn't that a little cruel? Mia, he didn't care about that. Why do you care? You know what? You're tired. Maybe you should sleep on it and we can discuss things tomorrow. Jess was right. I was beyond exhausted. The emotions of the day drained me in every sense, and I wanted nothing more than to fall asleep. Thankfully, the next day was a weekend. Jess and I put on one of the many movies we had watched many times and fell asleep to it. The next morning, we decided to take a day off from all our troubles and just stayed in bed and watched a couple of movies and shows. We cooked and ate great food and spent a lot of our time just enjoying each other's company. I won't lie. I had to fight with myself to not think about what had happened, but I knew that I needed to take time away if I wanted to deal with it properly. However, that night, I got a call from Holly. I didn't know if I wanted to pick it up, but when Jess looked over my shoulder and saw who was calling me, she urged me to pick it up. With my heart pounding, I picked up the call. Hello, Holly? You scum! Wow, what did I do? You only want my son's money, don't you? Excuse me? That's why you've decided to cut off all his expenses, isn't it? No, he's been spending away all his money on his stupid investments. There's only so long that I can support his bad decisions, especially when they affect us. Well, that was all a test. A test?
I was only trying to prove to Fred that you were only staying with him for his money. And look at you. You proved my point. Don't you think you overstepped a little too much into our relationship? Who are you to tell me what's right and wrong when you're a gold digger? Okay, you know what? I don't want my marriage to fail, so what do you propose I do to make things better? I want you and Fred to split everything 50-50. Everything? Are you sure? Yes. Let me see how long you'll last. I will draw up a contract for the both of you, and once you've signed it, you have to stick to it. Well, all right. If Fred agrees to it, we'll do it. I would also like a copy of that contract. Of course. We'll see you on Tuesday. I couldn't believe that this was what my marriage had come to. But at the same time, I was full of anger. How dare she call me a gold digger, and how dare Fred be okay with that? I had done nothing but support everything he did, even if it meant losses for us. Hell, even when he lied to me, I covered for us. When I told Jess about what had happened on the call, she began to smile. She helped me realize just how perfect what Holly had done was. If we split everything evenly, that would mean that our mortgage and other big expenses would have to be split. I knew for a fact that if Fred had to pay for his share of everything, he would have virtually nothing to fall back on. He didn't know about my side hustle because it had started off as a secret. I wanted it to get going properly before I told Fred about it. I also wanted to make enough money to buy Fred something expensive and then surprise him with my new source of income. At that moment, I was just really glad that I actually had something solid to fall back on. Tuesday came by pretty quickly. Jess accompanied me after we were both done with work, so she could also see what was happening. When we got back home, Holly and Fred were already there. Fred was on his phone while Holly was sitting next to the lawyer and looking at his laptop, making amends to what I assumed was the contract. Holly looked at me with disinterest while Fred looked anxious when he saw me. He tried to communicate with me with his eyes to get us to go talk in the kitchen, but I ignored him. I walked over to Holly and asked to see the contract. The lawyer moved aside and I got to see what was written. Like I had expected, everything was meant to be split evenly along with the added rule of not helping the other if one of them is short on money. I agreed to it. We got the contract printed out and I signed it. It didn't take long for Fred to start having problems. Initially, Fred and I didn't talk much to each other because I didn't see why I needed to talk to someone who was so willing to see me suffer. But when you live with someone, talking becomes inevitable. Fred also really tried to get me to talk to him. I didn't really bother to answer him at first, but then I got tired of him constantly trying, so I engaged him in conversation. Will you please just talk to me? We can't keep going this way. What do you want me to say to you, Fred? I don't know, but I miss us. Oh, really? Is that why you agreed to sign a contract fully separating our finances? Well, I just wanted to see if you were in it for the money. You know how many problems your mother has caused between us, and you still choose to believe her. Is this really the best solution for you? Hey, don't call my mother problematic. Also, what money do you have that I'll need so much? Look, I don't want you to lash out at me, okay? I'm trying to make amends here. There will be no amends until that contract is gone. It's only been 2 weeks since we signed it. I have seen no proof that you aren't here for the money. You are some piece of work, aren't you? Look, if you're struggling financially, let me know. I'll help you. Wouldn't that be against your point? Besides, I don't want to be held responsible for violating the contract. Why are you being so difficult? You made things difficult. Can we just be civil with each other? Sure. I could see Fred struggling to maintain the views that Holly influenced and the ones he had originally held. The Fred I had married would never have done something so drastic that had even the slightest bit of a chance to harm me. But here he was, obeying every word of his mother's, and he would live to regret it. That month, I had dutifully already paid off all our big loans, so when the next month rolled around, Fred was stuck. I had paid off my share of the loans and I was living well. Having to pay only half of it freed up my budget by a lot, and that meant that I was able to finally splurge on myself. Jess and I went out a lot. We went to all these fancy restaurants and drank fancy wines. We went to museums and quaint cafes. Obviously, all of this was getting posted on social media. I invited Fred to join on many occasions, but he always said he couldn't come along because, surprise, surprise, he had no money to. To add to that, my graphic designing side gig was going so well that I had cut down the hours of my day job to focus more on that instead. I was even contemplating quitting it. Obviously, Fred was struggling a lot. I went as far as to divide even our groceries, so whenever I looked at his side of the pantry, fridge, it would almost always be almost empty. A part of me did feel bad for him, but I kept reminding myself that he had brought this on himself. Eventually, Holly came over to our place. I had been out with Jess, so I was pretty surprised to see her there. "Oh, hey, Holly, what brings you here?" "Don't you try and play innocent right now." "Huh?" "I know what you've been doing, and I'm going to call the police on you." "Excuse me? What are you talking about?" "You've been stealing from Fred." "Huh? Why would I do something like that?" "Because you're trying to get revenge on him. You don't like that he made you sign that contract. My poor son has been struggling all month while you steal his money and go out to all those fancy places." First of all, your son has no money to steal. I obviously hate the contract, but let's not forget who actually made us sign it. You forced this on us, and now your son is struggling. Liar. I'm calling the police right now. Go ahead. I haven't stolen a cent from your son. How do you have so much money then? Your job doesn't do that much more than Fred's. And from what he's told me, you've cut back more hours. I have another business on the side, a graphic designing one that I plan to surprise Fred with until you filled his head with garbage. You started your own business without telling me about it? I plan to buy you a car with the money I earned. How much do you make from it? Oh, a lot more than you think. You lied. I didn't do anything. I was trying to do a good thing and then you ruined it. Since you feel so strongly for your son, maybe you should be the one who supports him. And while we're at this, here. I handed the divorce papers to Fred. I had filed for it right after we signed the contract and had been keeping it with me until the right moment presented itself. Fred stared at me with shock, but I couldn't care less. Holly would have normally been very happy to see those papers, considering that had been what she was vying for all this time. But she looked mad instead now that she knew what this was costing Fred. I told them that I would be moving out in 3 weeks and that I would continue to split the remaining amount for the loans, but that was it. Fred tried to plead with me, but I simply told him that this was what he brought on himself. It's been a couple of months since all of this has happened, and I can happily tell you that I'm out of that toxic relationship. Holly didn't let Fred divorce me without contesting it, but there was nothing for Fred to win, considering we had signed a contract that explicitly separated all of our assets. He only ended up losing more money. Since he couldn't keep up with all the mortgage expenses on the house, we sold it, and he moved back in with his mother. My life has only taken a positive turn. My business has been booming, and I have gotten to work with a lot of big brands. It has been a blissful and amazing time for me. I'm just grateful that I had something to fall back on, because otherwise I would have ended up like Fred. I do hope that he takes this as a lesson for next time. Then again, that's not something for me to worry about. Greetings, everyone. I'm Blake. Let me start by saying how incredibly lucky I've been in my life, except for one tiny detail. You see, life gifted me a family that I cherish, but it also threw in a few complications along the way. Let me share a bit of my story with you. To begin with, I do not know who my real dad is. He pretty much checked out of the picture from day one, leaving my mom, Teresa, to be the single parent. Life was not always a walk in the park, but it was manageable with my mom's love holding things together. Then, when I was 7, Scott entered the scene. Now, Scott was like the superhero version of a stepdad. He was kind, had an epic sense of humor, and radiated a warmth that could melt glaciers. He was a package deal who came with his 6-year-old daughter, Veronica, from a previous marriage. Now, let me tell you, life got interesting. Scott was an awesome dad. I'm talking pancake breakfasts every Saturday and epic movie nights. You could literally feel the love oozing from the guy. That kind of love was hard to ignore. Veronica was not too thrilled about the love Scott was dishing out, especially towards me. Veronica, let me tell you, was your classic overachiever. She had always been the shining star, but with my arrival, she had to share the spotlight. At first, I figured she just needed some time to adjust as I went from my early years into those awkward teenage days. Our sibling rivalry reached epic proportions, and Veronica's jealousy raged like a storm. I have hundreds of stories of our fights, but here is one, so you get the idea. Scott surprised us both with cars for college. Yeah, you heard me right. Not one car, but 2. One for each of us. It was like a dream come true, and I could not have been more grateful to him. But Veronica, on the other hand, was furious. A Honda? Really, Dad, this is all you could afford? Veronica, we discussed this already. It is a good, reliable car, and I thought it would be perfect for you and Blake. It is more than perfect, Dad. I love it. Well, I do not see why she gets a car at all. Maybe if you had not spent the money on her, you could have bought me something better. Veronica, you could learn a thing or two about gratitude from your sister. Blake this, Blake that. She's not my real sister, Dad, and she is not even your real daughter. Can we stop treating her like that? Veronica, don't be like this. You are going to college, and being so kiddish won't take you a long way. Blake is family to us, and I care about her just as much as I care about you. Well, I'm 26 now, and over all these years, Veronica has gone calm. We both got our own jobs and lives, and we just met at the holidays back at the family house. So Thanksgiving last year was quite the game changer. Luca, my now husband, decided to pop the question right before the big family gathering. Luca and I crossed paths at college. He was a charming British exchange student with an accent that could make anyone swoon. We fell head over heels for each other, and ever since then we have been strong. Now, when Luca proposed, I was on cloud 9. He got down on one knee, and I could not believe my luck. It felt like the perfect time to introduce him to my family. So I brought Luca home to meet everyone and to share our exciting news. Hey folks, can I have your attention for a second? Well, look who's decided to step into the limelight. What's up, Blake? You know me, Dad. I try to avoid the spotlight, but this is too big to keep under wraps. Luca and I have some smashing news to share. We have been waiting for this moment for a while now, innit? Luca popped the question, and I said yes. We're going to get married next year. Oh, Blake, that's absolutely amazing news. Brilliant, huh? Well, I can assure you, brilliant is the plan. You better take care of our girl, Luca. The bloke stole our Blake right from under our noses. Oh my God, you and your dad joke, Dad. He has been taking care of me quite well, actually. Wow, a wedding announcement. What is next? Flying pigs? Thanks for your enthusiasm, Veronica. Luca, are you absolutely certain Blake didn't use some secret American hypnosis on you to make you propose? I am bloody sure she did not. I'm bloody sure she did not. Thanksgiving had come and gone, and it felt nice. We all went back to our lives, and Luca and I decided on a wedding date, March 19th. Time was passing quickly, Christmas was approaching, and I realized that I would not be able to visit my family during the holidays. Luca and I had made plans to spend Christmas in London with his family. The new year rolled around, and it was time for what we jokingly refer to as our family meeting. So, Blake, how was your holiday in London? It was lovely, Dad. London's such an exciting city, and Luca's family was incredibly welcoming. The rainy cab rides were the best. I bet it was cold in London, right? Oh, it was freezing, Mom. But you know, that's part of the charm. We had some great moments, though. That's good to hear. We were a bit worried about you being away during Christmas. I know, Dad. I really missed you guys during the holidays, but I got to experience the magic of a British Christmas, so that was pretty special. I'm sure it was special. Speaking of special, there is something I'd like to discuss. Dad, I have a favor to ask you. Of course, sweetheart, anything you need. Dad, will you do me the honor of walking me down the aisle on our wedding day? Blake, I would be delighted. You know you're my little girl, and I could not be happier. Thank you, Dad. The wedding is going to be on March 19th, so keep your schedules all clear, you guys. March 19th? Really? Well, it's just a date that Luca and I felt was right for us. We love the spring, and also it's the date we first met. We're both really excited. Excited, huh? Sounds like someone can't wait to snatch up her British catch. That's enough, girls. I was absolutely pumped to start planning the wedding. Maddie, my best friend since forever, had agreed to be my maid of honor, and we were both ready to get into the whole wedding prep as we did not have much time on our hands. Then, a few days later, my phone buzzed with news that just killed my buzz. Hey, sis, guess what? Oh my God, you seem so happy. What's up, Veronica? Kevin and I are getting married. Wow, Veronica, that's fantastic. Congratulations, I'm happy for you. I mean, we had been engaged for like a year now? We thought it would be a great time. 2 weddings in the family instead of 1. Awesome. Well, we are going to have a little problem though, Blake. You see, our wedding will be on the 19th. The 19th of March? That is the same date Luca and I picked for our wedding. I mean, looks like people are going to have to pick a side. But we picked it first. That is not my fault, you know. Dad will obviously walk me down the aisle since he is my real dad. You might just have to walk alone. Come on, Veronica, we're like sisters. He can't just split himself in half. Aw, poor you, Blake. You will have to walk solo down the aisle. Such a shame. This is typical Veronica behavior, isn't it? You see, I get some attention all to myself, and there you go, trying to find a way to make it all about you by sabotaging me. This isn't some stupid dress or some car. It's my wedding, for Christ's sakes. Well, Blake, it is what it is. Kevin's family is like super loaded. He's one of the richest guys in town. Our wedding is going to be extravagant. We are even planning on sending out these goodie bags with the invitations. It's going to be off the charts. People would want to attend a wedding like that. Veronica, it's not a competition. It's about love and, oh, Blake, you and your little speech. Good luck trying to make your wedding even remotely as grand as ours. I'll bet you can't. It is cute that you're getting married and all, but I can't help but wonder, what does Luca do for a living again? Isn't he just some flop architect or something? No one would want to come to your cheap wedding. Cut it out. What has gotten into you? Our family should be happy for both of us. Fine, Blake. I just thought you should know what you're up against. Have fun planning your tiny little wedding while we host the event of the year. So there I was, caught in the middle of a sibling rivalry I never anticipated. This was like the mother of all battles. The date, March 19th, meant the world to me and Luca. I called my parents. They told me that Veronica had contacted them as well, and they were going to have a chat with her. But what if she was as stubborn as ever? What if she refused to budge? Veronica had always been the kind of person who got what she wanted one way or another. She had been engaged to Kevin for a year, and when I announced my wedding, she did too, and that too on the same date. I put everything on hold, including my plans for the wedding. I was running out of time, but just a couple of days later, I received another call from Veronica. "Blake, I talked with my dad." "Okay, and?" "He made me realize that I have been acting selfish and immature all along, always wanting things my way, and I guess I have been a terrible sister. I'm truly sorry for everything." Wow, I did not see that coming, but thanks for saying that. It means a lot. "I should have been more supportive all these years. Your wedding deserves to be special, and I should not have been so stuck on March 19th. "It's not too late, Veronica." "That's what I realized. I'm going to make things right. I want to help you with the wedding preparations. I know I've wasted a lot of your time, but I'll make it up to you." That's really kind of you, Veronica. I appreciate it more than you can imagine. "After all, we are sisters, and it's your big day. It means a lot to hear you say that. You have no idea." "Well, you are stuck with me now, sis. We're going to make this wedding awesome." Little did I know, Veronica had something entirely different up her sleeve. It was like she had had a secret plan all along to become the ultimate awesome sister, and she was playing her part to perfection. Throughout our wedding preparations, she was right there with us, joining in on everything from the wedding dress hunt to a cake-tasting frenzy. We could not believe our eyes. Veronica was genuinely into it, offering suggestions and getting all hyped up about our big day. It was almost too good to be true. The turning point arrived when it was time to book the wedding venue. Luca had work piled up, so I asked Veronica to tag along with me. As we drove to the venue, the vibe was all good. Jenna, the event manager, welcomed us and gave us the grand tour, going through seating plans and decoration ideas. I was over the moon, imagining how perfect our wedding would be. "Well, I'll go home and show Luca the pictures I've clicked. I think this fits his taste." "That would be great. I think this place is perfect too, you know. It is so you and Luca." "Jenna, I'll show the pictures of the venue I took to my fiancé and get his opinion. I'll let you know in 2 days, let's say." "That is completely fine, Blake. Take your time." Luca instantly fell in love with the venue when I showed him the pictures. It was a yes from him, so we were full of excitement and ready to seal the deal. We just had one more thing left to do: pay Jenna, the venue coordinator, an advance to book the place. But Luca was knee-deep in work at the office and could not break free to make the payment himself. However, on the day I needed to visit Jenna to make the payment, the dress shop called and said the seamstress could not get hold of my sizes, so I needed to run down to the shop last minute. I called Maddie, but she did not pick up. Veronica was conveniently available. I sent her the money, trusting her to handle the venue payment. Everything seemed in order. The money was in her account, and the payment should have been a straightforward process. I sent a text to Veronica later that day to make sure she did her job. "Hey, did you make the payment to Jenna for the venue?" "Yep, all done. Your place for the day is sorted now." "Awesome. Thanks, sis. You're a lifesaver." We had 2 months left for the wedding, and along with that, a long list of tasks to complete, from sending out invitations to choosing the perfect flowers, cake, and decorations. I spent countless hours experimenting with different hair and makeup styles. Luca, on the other hand, was busy with his own responsibilities. He was coordinating with the caterers, finalizing the guest list, and making sure the invites were sent on time. Just 3 weeks before the wedding, Veronica dropped by my place. "What's all this, Veronica?" "Well, a bottle of wine and some macaroons. Kevin wanted to come too, but he could not because, he's a busy man." "Wine and macaroons? What's the occasion?" "Oh, did I forget to mention? I also brought my wedding invitation. I sent it out to everyone weeks ago, but I wanted to give it to you in person. Sorry for being so late." Wow, that's so exciting. When is the wedding scheduled to be? Open it. The 19th of March? What? You've been lying to me all along? This is not even the best part, honey. Keep reading. Wait, what? The venue mentioned here is the one I picked for my wedding? It's supposed to be mine on the 19th. Oops, looks like you trusted the wrong person. What did you do, Veronica? Well, Blake, it's simple. I went with Kevin to the venue when you asked me to. I told them how your wedding got cancelled because your fiancé dumped you. Kevin and I thought it was a great place for our wedding, so we booked it for ourselves. 3 weeks before my wedding, and I have no place. I have already sent out the invites and everything is arranged. How could you do this? Well, you know what they say, trust no one. Oh, and before I forget, here is a check for the money you transferred into my account. I don't like keeping poor people's money. You have ruined everything, Veronica. How can you be so heartless? Life's tough, Blake. You should have known better than to trust me. My wedding is back on track, and yours, well, I guess you'll have to find a new venue. Maybe something less extravagant. That place is not built for people like you. I can't believe you do this to me, Veronica. We are supposed to be sisters. Sisters don't always have to be friends, Blake. You will learn that the hard way. Do Mom and Dad know about this? They are my next stop. They might be a little mad, but he is my dad after all, my blood, and I don't really care about your stupid mom, Teresa. She means nothing to me. You have betrayed me in the worst way possible. Well, you're still invited to the wedding. I'll take my leave now. I dumped everything she brought, the wine, the macaroons, all of it. Then I could not hold back the tears any longer. I called Luca, and he rushed over to our place. Hey, don't lose hope. We will figure this out. We have to. My family from London and all other guests must have booked their tickets. Did you talk to your parents? No, not yet. I just dumped everything Veronica brought. I was so mad, Luca. What are we going to do? The wedding is just 3 weeks away, and we have already sent out all the invitations. We will find a last-minute venue, Blake. This wedding is happening. Don't worry, we will make it work, even if we have to pull off a miracle. I'm just so frustrated. The next day, my parents came over to address the situation. They were concerned about what had happened and wanted to discuss how to move forward. We all sat down in the living room. I can't believe Veronica did this to you, Blake. She crossed the line this time. I apologize for her behavior. It's not your fault, Dad. I had a long talk with her when she came over with the news of this surprise wedding. I told her she was out of line and needed to make it right, but you know how she can be. Well, there's nothing that can be done now. Love, we still have some time. We can send e-invites. I know it is not all perfect, but trust me, you will give Veronica the last laugh if you cancel out like this. Well, I have an offer. As soon as Veronica gave me the news, I knew you would be devastated, so I called a friend who owns a beautiful piece of real estate. Lovely garden. It is perfect for a wedding. You can use it. Bring your caterers and all the arrangements there. It will look extravagant. Let me show you some pictures. Luca and I checked out the pictures my mom showed me, and in all honesty, the place was very green and serene. It would be good for our wedding aesthetic. My friend said you guys can drive down there and check it out in person today itself. Dad, that is incredibly generous. Thank you. The place will look gorgeous once it's all decorated. I have known him for years. He owed me a favor. He was more than happy to help. We'll make your wedding day special, just like you deserve. I'm really grateful, Dad. I never imagined it would come to this. I'm just glad I can do something to make it right. We are both here for you. Absolutely, Blake. Scott's idea sounds wonderful. We'll make this work. The thing is, Blake, both of my daughter's weddings are crashing. But after what she did, actually what she has been doing all along, I'm not going to be there for her anymore. I want to be with you, and I want to walk you down the aisle. That's a strong statement, Scott, but a very fitting one. Dad, I can't tell you how much it means to me. I'm so lucky to have you by my side. 3 weeks flew by in a frenzy of activity. Luca and I went to check out the new venue, which was even better than I could have imagined. We jazzed up the place with extra flowers and decor, and you know what? It turned out to be a total blessing in disguise. The transition was smoother than I could have imagined, and the new spot had this dreamy charm that would make our guests swoon. The big day arrived. The sun bathed the garden in this gorgeous golden light, and the flowers decided to show off just for us. And then there was Scott, my amazing dad, walking me down the aisle towards Luca. I was hit with all the feelings, and I could not stop the happy tears. The ceremony was touching. The speeches were filled with all love, and the dancing, well, that went on until the stars came out. It was everything I had ever dreamed of. And let us not forget, we saved some major cash by not having to pay for the first venue. With that extra dough, we extended our honeymoon to a whopping 20 days, planning to hit up all the dreamy destinations on our list. Funny thing though, I had not heard a peep from Veronica. You would think after all the drama that she might want to reach out, maybe apologize or show some anger. But it seemed like she had gone MIA. Finally, when I was on my honeymoon, I got a call from Veronica. Blake, I can't believe you. Our dad walked you down the aisle. It was supposed to be my day, and he chose you. Veronica, you need to understand that Dad made that decision. Well, maybe if you had not hijacked my wedding date, he would have still been there for me. Veronica, it was my wedding date first. You brought it upon yourself because you know who decided to pull that stunt with the venue. It was embarrassing. I was waiting for everyone, but none of my family showed up on my side, and when it was time to walk me down the aisle, I had to walk alone. Maybe, but it still feels like you stole my thunder. It is not about stealing anyone's thunder. It's about consequences. Well, I don't think it's fair. Well, Veronica, I'd love to chat, but Luca and I are currently on our extended honeymoon enjoying the sunsets and exotic locations. Don't bother me now. We're busy living our best lives. Veronica admitted to me that she felt pretty embarrassed. I have to say, it's hard not to feel a tiny bit of satisfaction about that. After all, she kind of had it coming. After all that wedding drama, family feuds, and general chaos, it seems like nobody really wants to talk to Veronica anymore. Yeah, karma's got a way of sneaking up on you, and she got her fair share. In the end, life has a way of sorting things out. Sometimes it means a little wedding day drama, but hey, it keeps things interesting. Hello, I'm Freya, and I'm 27 years old. I have a very complicated relationship with my mother. You'd think that having only one parent would make you have a closer relationship with them, but that really wasn't the case with me. My dad and I were super close growing up. He was my role model and the person I looked up to the most. I was also not really interested in anything that my mom tried to get me into. I was not the daughter she had always wanted, and that created this resentment in her against me. I was around 12 when my dad passed away in a horrific car crash. I was devastated and I refused to come out of my room for weeks. My mom eventually got tired of me moping around and began to take her frustrations out on me. There was not a day that went by when she didn't yell at me for being too lazy. Even when I tried to talk to her about how much I missed Dad, she would simply tell me to get over it. I resorted to just not telling her about anything that I felt or anything that was going on in my life. That only made her angrier. She got even more controlling. She needed to know everything that I did from the time I woke up till I went to sleep. If she suspected I was hiding something, she would ground me. It was truly a nightmare to live with her. Alongside that,
She also loved to poke fun at me for my appearance. As a teenager, that was devastating. She would call me fat and ugly at any point that I upset her and would never apologize for it. In fact, she took great pleasure in seeing me look so hurt. If I did even the slightest thing to upset her, though, suddenly she was the victim of a heinous crime. She was very dramatic. When I turned 16, my life only got more hellish. My mom gave me a month to get a job because she wanted me to pay rent. "You need to find a job. I'm done providing for you." "But I'm your daughter." "And you're an ungrateful one. You have 1 month. After that, I expect you to pay rent." "I'm not even an adult. How can you make me pay rent?" "You're an adult enough to keep talking back to me right now, aren't you?" "You can't be serious, Mom." "You need to cut me some slack, Freya. I've been working non-stop for the last 16 years. I want a break, too. You're old enough to start paying rent." "How much do you expect me to pay?" "Market price, of course." "So let me get this right. You want me to pay rent at market price and feed myself while juggling school at the same time?" "Yes." "Do we each live days that have different hours? Where will I even get the time for all of that? Do you expect me to never sleep?" "I don't care about the technicalities. If you want to continue living here, you have to follow my rules." I couldn't believe that my own mother was treating me like I was some tenant looking for a place to live. I knew that there was no way for me to even get close to accomplishing her conditions without absolutely burning myself out. But at that moment, I was so panicked and scared that my brain refused to work. For the next month, I managed to find a job and somehow, by some miracle, managed to juggle working and school. I was catching a maximum of 3 hours of sleep, and I was barely eating anything because my body was so exhausted that all I ever felt was nausea. Obviously, I lost a lot of weight, but my mom didn't seem to care. When it came time to pay the rent, she knocked on my door and rudely asked me for the money. I handed her almost the entirety of my paycheck and watched her glow with joy as she held all the money. She then looked at me with this evil look on her face and told me that she gave me extra time this month to pay off the rent because I hadn't started working until the second week of the month, but she expected me to pay her the rent by the first week of the next month. I wanted to cry and sleep. My mother turned into every cliched evil stepmother. Except this time she was my actual biological mother. I remember thinking at that time that I wished I had someone to help me out of the miserable life I was living. The next day, I was talking about it with a friend when she asked me if I had any family members living nearby. That's when it struck me. I did have one family member, and that was my mom's sister, Bess. Aunt Bess lived in the town with her family. She and I always had a very close bond, although because my mom and her had a fight about something, I stopped being able to see her. I did feel kind of bad that I was only reaching out when I needed help, but I knew that she would have been even more upset if I had not reached out at all. So one day I told my mom that I was going on a road trip with my friends and left to go see Aunt Bess. When I got to her house, she was very surprised to see me. It had been about 1.5 years since we met each other. She hugged me really tight and with tears in her eyes asked me what I was doing there. I told her I needed her help with something. She cut me off and told me to explain myself once I was sitting inside. Once we were both comfy, she asked me again why I had come over. "So tell me, darling, why have you come over so suddenly? Does your mom know about you coming here?" "Oh, no. Don't tell Mom about me being here. I told her I was going on a road trip with some friends and they were covering for me in case she called. Okay, that's great, but did something happen? I'm guessing it must be bad considering you're lying to your mom to meet me here. Yeah, well, Mom's been going on some crazy tangent about retiring early. But does she have any savings to fall back on? I mean, she also has to take care of you. Well, she solved that problem by having me pay her rent to live with her. What? What do you mean? She thinks since I'm old enough to work, I can start paying rent. But what about school? You won't have any time for yourself or anything else if you work enough to pay rent. That's what I said. I would have been sort of okay with it if she gave me a small price to pay, but she expects me to pay her rent at the current market price. What the hell is wrong with that woman? How in the world is she charging her own daughter to live in the house that she grew up in? I don't know, but I managed to do it somehow this month, and I know I look like I haven't slept in ages. Everything hurts, and I want nothing more than to just relax for a day. You already started working? She gave me a month to find a job and pay her the rent when she gave me the ultimatum. I just paid my first rent, but seeing how happy she looked and the way she demanded me to pay her within the first week of next month, I knew I couldn't keep doing this anymore. My goodness, you poor child. What are you going to do about it? I was kind of hoping that you'd be able to help me out just until I turn 18, if you want. I'll even take care of my expenses and maybe I could pay you rent, but at a discount. Nonsense, Freya. You're family. Moreover, you're a child. How could I possibly ask you to pay for anything when I am more than capable of providing for you? Of course I'll help you out, but I need you to do it on one condition. Yes, I'll do absolutely anything. You cannot tell your mother that you're staying with me or that I'm helping you out. Of course, I never planned to anyway. That's it then. You're staying with us. You can begin moving in as soon as you like. Thank you so much. You're a lifesaver, Aunt Bess. I spent the rest of the day with Aunt Bess because she really did make me feel better. When she agreed to let me stay with her, I felt like this huge weight had been lifted off of me. All the anxiety I had about Mom's condition vanished. I spent the night with Aunt Bess and her family. It felt good to be with other family members. When I said that my mom had a fight with Aunt Bess and it destroyed their relationship, I meant it. When my dad passed away, my mom had been a stay-at-home mom, so she didn't really have any means of living for a couple of months until she found her a job. To add to it, she also had to finish her degree, which she left when she got pregnant with me. My aunt felt bad for her and told her that she would help her out until she got a job. At that time, my aunt lived on her own and made more than enough money. My mom was grateful for my aunt's help, but she ended up lying to my aunt for a long while. She did not tell my aunt when she graduated or when she got a job. Instead, she kept taking money from her. The thing is, if she had just asked my aunt for extra money, my aunt would have readily given it to her. So when my aunt found out about my mom's technical stealing, they got into this huge fight. I remember that fight like it was only yesterday. My aunt had calmly confronted my mom about what she had been doing, and my mom got super defensive about it. Of course, my mom escalated the fight and it became a screaming match. My aunt ended up leaving after saying that she would no longer support my mom in any way. My aunt continued to buy me things and would often ask me what I wanted, and she would send them over to me. My mom didn't mind because she knew that at the end of the day, her sister was still carrying a good portion of the cost that she would have had to carry. It wasn't until my aunt got married that my mom began to have a problem with her. My aunt married a rich and handsome man, whom my mom was immediately jealous of. She was already jealous of the luxurious lifestyle her sister had, but to see it get even better threw my mom off the edge. From then on, she went down a spiral of hating my aunt. She began to talk badly about her sister to all their family and friends. Once again, there was a lot of fighting, and it ended with my aunt cutting off contact with us. As I spent time with my aunt, she told me about how guilty she felt for not making contact with me because I didn't do anything wrong. But she had to because my mother was getting too toxic. I knew that she did what she had to do to protect herself and her family because that's exactly what I was doing at that moment. I told her she had nothing to apologize for, and we carried on with the rest of the night. Over the next week, I began to move my things out of the house. When my mom figured out what I was doing, she flew into a fit of rage. "What do you think you're doing?" "Moving out." "And with whose permission are you doing that?" "I didn't think I needed permission to move out." "Why did you think that? You live under my roof, so you need my permission for everything." "That's exactly why I'm moving out. I don't want to live by your rules anymore." "Are you talking back to me?" "No, but you did say that if I wanted to live here, I needed to pay rent. I don't want to pay rent, nor do I want to live here. So I'm just going to move out." "Who's even helping you?" "Just one of my friends." "Which one?" "I don't think that's any of your business, Mom." "So, you're nothing but a leech. They'll realize it pretty soon enough, and then you'll come crying back to me. Wait and watch. If you do come back, I'm not letting you in." Her words hurt, but I did my best to not think about them. Once I was pretty settled into my aunt's place, she helped me enroll in a high school in their town. I was pretty sad to be leaving my friends, but I knew that moving away from my toxic mother was what was best for me. From then on, I began to notice a significant change in my overall mood and well-being. I was, first of all, very well rested and healthy. I was happier and more interested in a lot of things. I no longer rushed to go to work or even just waited around at school so I could delay coming back home. In fact, I almost always rushed home after school. My aunt was a calm and reassuring presence for me. Since she only had one son and always wanted a girl, she took care of me like I was her own daughter. I even managed to get another, more relaxed job. My aunt took all my earnings and put them in a savings account for college. When it came time to apply for college, I chose to go to the college in my aunt's town. I got in with a good scholarship, which reduced a lot of my payments. My aunt helped, of course, but it still felt good to have contributed somehow to my own education. Since I was in college and I could afford it, around the second year I decided to move out of my aunt's place. She was more than supportive of my decision and kept dropping by my place every once a week. This tradition hasn't died down to date, by the way. After I graduated, I managed to get a job at a good firm that also paid me good money. I was living really well and everything was going amazing. In all this time, I hadn't heard a word from my mother. It was at least understandable why I hadn't contacted her, but she never even tried to call me or even email me to ask how I was doing. Around this time was when I got engaged to my boyfriend, who I met in my third year of college. As a courtesy, I decided to get back in touch with my mom and invite her to the wedding. I knew she read the invite because she called me. That was the first time she called me in 7 years. "So, you're getting married?" "Yes. Hi, Mom." "How come I haven't heard about you being in a relationship?" "Well, you never called for the past 7 years, so..." "And it was my duty to call you? You couldn't have called me?" "I don't see why I had to make the first move when you were the one who forced me to move out." "I didn't do that."
You literally made me pay rent to live in the same house you raised me in. How could I not want to move out? Did you even care about your poor aging mother? Of course I did. But you never cared for your almost homeless child. Not once did you even check in on me. Do you even know where I live? Do you know about how I have been living these past few years? Look, I don't want to get into an argument right now. The invitation to my wedding is still open for you. Just let me know if you're going to be there or not so I can plan accordingly. I'll definitely be there. A part of me was happy that my mother would be attending the most important day of my life, but the other part of me felt like there was something off. I knew that my mother would never give up the opportunity to fight. It was clear as day how she was trying to steer our first conversation in years into a fight. Even though I felt like something was wrong, I ignored it and continued to plan my wedding. When the big day arrived, I saw my mother for the first time in years, and I will say that she did look like she aged a lot more than when I last saw her. My aunt was older than her, but somehow she looked younger in comparison to my mom. I greeted my mom with a hug, and she reciprocated it with so much happiness that I completely forgot about the bad feeling I had about her attending the wedding. The rest of the wedding ceremony and the reception went off well until it was time for toasts. After everyone gave their heartfelt speeches of love towards my husband and me, my mom took the mic and began to tell everybody that I had run away from home. She told them that I had stolen money from her and sought refuge in some place for the past 7 years. She then broke down crying and started asking me how I could do this to my own mother. I was in shock. That was not what I expected her to do. The feeling I had was right. Thankfully, most of the guests there knew of my story. The few that didn't, mostly my other relatives, looked confused and shocked. My husband had hired security for this very reason as a precaution in case my mother pulled something at the wedding. She was escorted out by security, but not without throwing a tantrum. She kicked and screamed while being escorted. She kept calling me a thief and a liar. After that, I decided that I never wanted to see my mother ever again. She had done more than enough. I had to send formal apologies along with explanations to every guest, even the ones who knew about the backstory, because it felt like it was the right thing to do. On top of all that, my mother ruined the most important day of my life just to get an ounce of attention. My aunt stood by me the entire time. After my mom was escorted out, my aunt went to have a stern word with her, and from what she told me, my mom yelled at her too, but eventually decided to not contact me for a while. I was grateful that my aunt took charge of that, because if I had to tell my mom that, I probably would have gone berserk. 3 years went by before I saw my mother again. This time, she was the one who made contact first. I don't know how she managed to get my address, so I was very surprised to see her at my door. Seeing her there only made me angrier. In the past 3 years, I had started going to therapy to unpack all my emotions, and that's when I realized just how much of an impact my mother had on me growing up. Somehow, she looked even older when I saw her. She looked thinner and rather sickly. She gave me a once-over and smirked. Putting on marriage weight, I see. If that's what you've come here for, please leave. Ugh, you could just never take a joke, could you? Excuse me? But when have you ever joked with me? I can't remember every single joke I've ever made. I just remember you getting butthurt about them. Okay, I'm going to shut the door in your face right now. No, please don't. I actually came here because I need your help. My help? What happened? Well, I ended up retiring like I planned, but turned out I didn't have enough money to actually cover my retirement.
The house's mortgage was still not paid off and it ended up foreclosing. I have no place to go and I was wondering if you would maybe let me stay with you for a while. Okay, that's it? I can move in? Oh, yeah, of course. You just need to pay me rent, at market price, of course. Rent? I'm your mother. How dare you ask me to pay you rent? After all I gave you. Did it matter that I was your daughter when you asked me to pay rent? But I don't have the means to pay rent. Well, you could always find a job. After all, you're old enough to pay rent. You are unbelievable. This is my house, so it's my rules. You either pay rent or leave it. It's as simple as that. Never mind, I thought you'd at least be a little sympathetic because I'm your mother, but I should have known better. You've always been a selfish brat, and I don't know why I expected you to change. With that, she stormed off. I was shaking after that interaction, but it felt so good to put my mother in her place and give her a taste of her own medicine. Of course, her entitlement was shocking, but I should have expected it considering she acted that way all my life. I don't know what happened to her after that, nor did I actively try to find out. My aunt did call to tell me that my mother had gone crying to her as well, but my aunt turned her down. Apparently, she also saw a bunch of pictures with me in them around the house and realized that my aunt helped me out, and she threw a big fit about it. Whatever it was, I was glad that in the end, I was living the best life I could, surrounded by people who truly love, value, and respect me.